Hello and welcome back to Parenting Uncovered. We are so excited about today's episode. We have some awesome people here that we are going to be interviewing, and Dave's going to tell you all about them.
I'm excited. Yeah, we've got Eric and Geo Huffman, founders of the Story Church in Houston, Texas. And Eric also hosts the Maybe God podcast. They're the parents of two teenagers. And we're going to have a conversation today about raising teens. And so lean in. We're going to cover a lot of stuff. And so without further ado, guys, welcome Eric and Geo. Welcome to the Parenting Uncovered podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Excited.
We're excited. This is new. See, this is new. We've been doing the Naked Marriage podcast for a long time, but this, the Parenting Uncovered podcast, you guys are actually just
Those are some of the second one we're recording.
Yeah, you are fresh. I mean, this is
Congratulations.
It still has that new podcast smell.
It does.
Yeah, congrats on that. And this is much needed. So yeah,
it is. I know, and we're leaning in especially because I know, Eric, we've told you this about kind of the ages of our kids, but we have 4 boys ranging in age from 8 to 18. And so 2 of ours are teenagers. And then that third one soon enough is going to be a teen. And so we're in the midst of still figuring this out, right, sweetie?
Yeah.
I mean,
this
is something.
We've got one in elementary, one in middle school, one in high school, and one in college. We just dropped our first off at college. And
all
so
4 schools.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
You feel like you're done, or are you going to have more?
Oh, gosh.
I think we feel like we're complete, but, hey, we never say never.
I look at her sometimes and just say, maybe 2 was our number.
No,
maybe we overshot.
We do not say that. We never say that.
Don't say that in front of the young.
No, we love our boys.
I can't imagine life without. I mean, they're wonderful kids.
Oh gosh, every one of them.
We feel so blessed.
Yeah, is a gift, such a gift. I love our boys so much. But yes, we are very retired in that department.
Yes.
Looking forward to those grandkids someday. But tell us about your kids. Tell us about your family dynamic in this season.
Well, I still feel like it's weird to say we're parents of teenagers because it all flies by so fast. But we have a 15-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son. And how would you describe their personalities? What would you say?
Well, my daughter, Joelle, is exactly like Eric in every single way. Very charismatic.
She's been on the podcast once or twice.
Yes, very charismatic, bubbly, just the life of the party wherever she goes, and loves to be around people, loves to cuddle, just vibrant. And my daughter, our son, Cohen, he is more serious, more reserved, exactly like me, and just loves his quiet time. So we have 2 opposites, basically, with our kids.
Yeah.
I love. Yeah, each one is so unique, and that's so cool. Now, just as a quick side note, Gio, do your kids know Spanish? Have you raised them bilingual, or? Because I just thought that would be so. I wish I had been raised.
We could do that.
Yeah, that's one of the areas where I feel like a failure.
Oh,
I didn't mean to get a source.
No, they do.
No, well, our daughter speaks Spanish, but it's just because she self-taught herself. But my son is very impatient. Our son is very impatient, and he basically wants to understand everything and doesn't really want to learn another language. So we just kind of dropped the ball.
Some people learn languages easier than others, and we have a case study in that. So our daughter.
No, that is so much the truth. And I've heard that we have friends who, one of the spouses is a native Spanish speaker, and the husband is also, a native English speaker, and they had the same kind of thing. They're not totally on board with it, and they're like, one of our kids is really, easily learns the language. And so I'd say, hey, if one of them is really interested, like your daughter, go for it. And the other, it's like we have to choose our battles. And I think, especially in the teenage years, I'm sure you guys could speak to this. We only have boys, so we're not even raising teenage girls. And I remember I used to teach middle school. I taught 8th grade. And I remember during 8th grade especially, they're like 13, 14. That can be a rough time in a teenage girl's life. And what I found, and I would love for y'all to speak to this, is especially when it comes to girls and friendships, I feel like for the most part, there's just a lot of friction between girls during that period. And I know a lot of this is because of hormones and just the transition in life with growing up and navigating relationships and all that kind of thing, and their bodies and what they think about themselves, what they think about the world, what they think about God. And so what have you found, especially, and we'll talk about boys too, but especially in raising teenage girls, what are some of kind of the issues that maybe is different than teenage boys that you've had to navigate?
Yeah, it's definitely a complicated situation to raise a teenage daughter. I would say for us, it has been very, very important to make sure our daughter grows up in church, in the church culture. Mm-hmm. And I think it's been super important ever since we've had them. They have a choice about many things, but not about skipping church. And I think that she has been so privileged to have her best friend. Is basically, she's somebody she met when we arrived to Houston at 6 years old, and they've grown up together. They, FaceTime each other about everything from what they're going to wear to what they're going to do. Oh. And I think it's been super exciting to watch that relationship establish itself. And I think there are influences in her life that kind of shape who she is, beyond our parenting. They have been so key to have for her. And we've prayed very, very hard for her to also have other Christian friends. And we have been so privileged that in her life, she has found the right friends at the right time. I know that doesn't work for every parent, but, and for every child. Mm-hmm. But for our daughter, it has been so crucial for her to have Christian friends and, that influence her, that walk along her, and that are the friendships that will shape her critical years. And that has been a blessing for us. And I don't know about, I'm going to let you talk about Cohen.
Yeah, well, y'all want to get to the boys' side in a minute. I'll say from a dad of a teenage girl's perspective, I just think that there's a thin line where we want to draw these hard lines in the sand and these boundaries that are, sort of impenetrable. And that's understood. And we've done that. You've mostly done that. We play good cop, bad cop.
I'm the disciplinarian.
It's our dynamic a lot. Yeah. Well, not always, but.
Yeah, not always, right? I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, sometimes, when she just is feeling like, chilling and she's more relaxed, I'll put on that bad cop uniform and play act for a while. But I also think fundamentally when raising teenagers, we have this thing in our culture where basically we just see teenage years as an extended childhood. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I think we both do. And I think we see it as young adulthood more than extended childhood. And it's training time, and so we look at our teens as adults in training. And obviously we want to protect them and coddle them and cuddle them and all that stuff we all want to do with our kids. But it's time to get them ready to fly the nest. And so I think raising the bar of expectation is important, letting them make their own decisions within those boundaries that we set. Like, it's all pretty key. I mean, y'all said it earlier, picking your battles is so important. Like, that probably could have been the title of your podcast, is picking your battles while parenting.
Yeah. It's the truth.
It's so important,
It is, and never more than in the teenage years, because, I think that a lot of times you hear people in books, they talk about, like, with toddlers, giving them choices, picking your battles. But I feel like even more so, like you said, we're training these teens to flee the nest and to be able to live in this world as an individual, for Christ. And it's just, there's a lot of decisions that they're making. And we want, instead of just being, like you said, completely hard-lined on everything and making the decisions for them, we want to lead them to make those right decisions. We want to guide them in being able to do that. And that's been something we've had to navigate too. And I love, Geo, how you talked about friendships. I'm telling you, that has been a constant prayer of ours for, all the years we've been parents. Yeah. And we see it in our own lives, as adults, but I think that just praying for those good friendships and also helping our kids to recognize when a friendship is not good for them, that is really hard. But again, like what you guys are saying is, we can as parents say, like, you can't see this kid anymore, obviously. And there's a lot of situations where we need to do that. But I think the best thing is when the kid themselves, the teenager themselves, can say, I see this person isn't good for me. This person is not getting me closer to the Lord. And I just wanted to ask you, you said something, Geo, about, especially when raising your teenage daughter, about influences beyond you. And what are some of those things, when you said that, what comes to mind as good influences, godly influences beyond you guys? Like, what, if you could name those? I know our listeners would love to hear from that.
Yes, that's a great question. I think that for us, it is important for them to participate in activities and groups that will be God-centered. answered in one way or another. And, you have to prioritize, because we all want to be sometimes tiger mom, and, we want our kid to know 3 languages and to play every single sport and to get scholarships for college. We have all these big dreams. But when it comes down to what the Lord is commanding us to do as parents, for us, it has become very important to sort through all of those activities, all of those things, and to find activities and things that they can be a part of where the right mentors, where the right people are influencing their lives. And I think that's very, very hard to do. We've had to say no to a lot of things for her. And we're, even now we're constantly saying no. Like, there was a big temptation for our daughter to be a part of the dance team, for example. And, that was fine, but it was going to consume every single minute of her week. And she was going to miss her small group. She was going to miss church some weekends. And we had to say no, as much as it was hard, for her and for us. But it was the right decision, because she's been able to participate in more groups, start her own group, participate. What is that? Young Life. And she's been able to do so many different things that have been so life-giving to her, and that have really shaped who she is. And for us, it's very important as she grows up knowing Christ, knowing Scripture. And those are the priorities that you have to come up with. And for us, it's knowing Christ, knowing Scripture, knowing how to sacrifice, to live sacrificially, to live for others more than herself. And that has been super hard, because frankly, we live in an era of feelings, and girls have a lot of feelings. Like, I feel this, and I feel. And a lot of the times I've had to sort through those feelings with her and say, like, I know how you feel, but what do you think, how do you think God feels about this situation? Mm-hmm. And I think getting her outside of herself and to understand that there are other priorities that are greater and that supersede her feelings and her emotions, has been super important too. So,
yeah. That's so good. Yeah, that is so good. And you two are, you're as pastors in a unique situation where you're not just the parents of 2 teenagers, but you're also, the shepherds, the guides, the leaders, the pastors of others, families within your church. And so within your church, you kind of have a unique viewpoint of what families and what teenagers are struggling with and going through, and kind of what are some of your insights outside of your own family, but just kind of in the church as a whole and in the community that you see that teenagers are facing, or the parents of teenagers are facing. What are you seeing? Yeah.
Well, I heard a pastor a long time ago say, in his experience, and he was in a context a lot like Houston, Texas, where there are endless opportunities to do more and have more and all of that. And he said, we're raising a generation that's experience rich and relationship poor. And that has stuck with me all these years. That was probably a decade ago that I heard Andy Stanley say that. And I think that's spot on for a lot of families today, even Christian families, that we are trying to convince ourselves that more is more, when deep down we all kind of know that less is more, in terms of the number of influences we allow access to our kids, the number of groups we allow them to get involved in, the number of activities, the number of vacations that we take to try and impress them, all of it. We just try to do more and more and more. And we find ourselves more and more relationship poor in terms of the depth of our trust with our kids, the depth of our knowledge of them and their knowledge of us, and the depth of our discipleship as a family. And so I just find that as pastors, we always have invitations and things to go do more things as a couple, as pastors in Houston. And we say no to a lot of things for us. And our kids see us saying no to those things so we can be home with them.
Yes.
And that communicates to them, it's not just us arbitrarily keeping them from having more fun. It's a principle that we have tested, and we have reaped the benefits of it, and we want it for our kids as well. And it's okay to be home doing nothing, or having conversations, or going on walks, or it's okay to not be involved in all the things your friends are involved in. It's okay to not have 20 friends and get invited to all the parties. Okay to have 3 really good friends and they all love Jesus and you know, they're all good for each other. Like sometimes less really is more, and that's sort of been our philosophy of parenting.
Right.
I love it.
No, that's so true. And that statement, I mean, that's something I think we all need to just keep in mind. Because I know as parents, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to say, I want to do better for my kids and give my kids more than maybe I had or whatever. But I think, like you said, we get so wrapped up in really being narrow-minded with that, thinking it's about stuff, when really we want them to be relationship rich. You know, I've never heard that term, but that is just so spot on. I mean, you know, we moved back to like the town we're in now to make sure our kids, we didn't use that language, but it was to be relationship rich. I mean, essentially, right? I mean, that was like our main motivation, because they were having such a hard time connecting. And we're like, we want our kids to build on relationships, and it's worth it for us as a family to make our job harder in getting to where we need to go if they can be relationship rich, because it is so important. And it gives our kids such a foundation, and especially, you know, when they're godly friendships. And I'm always telling my boys, I'm like, if you have, you know, even 1 to 3 close friends, like you mentioned that number, I'm like, that love you, love the Lord, want what's best for you, and also aren't just yes people in your life where they're just telling you yes all the time, but they're people who really help you to grow and help you to see a better perspective, then you count yourself blessed. I mean, that is just such a blessing, and everyone longs for that. But I do think that we're in a culture that is so connected, you know, social media wise and internet wise, but just like you said, we're so relationship poor because it's all surface level. It doesn't go deeper. And sometimes I think, you know, even when I was teaching teenagers, I saw, and that was like a long time ago, but that was the beginning of that, where I saw like this connectedness in devices, but just they were like anemic when it comes to just knowing how to even have a face-to-face conversation, and it's even more so today. And so we're constantly having that conversation in our house, because we have kids, you know, boys who love to game. They love their little online things. They do connect, and they're talking to people on, you mentioned FaceTime. You know, one of our sons FaceTimes his cousins in Kentucky, because we're in Georgia, while he's playing Roblox. I don't know if y'all know Roblox or if your kids are ever into it.
Well.
Yeah, you know, so it's not like a bad thing, and I love that he's connecting, but we have very specific times they can do that, because again, we don't want it to be all about the game or the connection that you're doing over a device. We want it to be about real relationships, and also just like you guys mentioned this, being at home, not having an agenda, and being okay.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
that,
and putting technology down. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yes.
But we have very strict boundaries as far as technology is concerned. I first of all give them only 30 minutes a day.
Yeah, it's pretty rigid.
For their cell phones. Once they reach that limit, they can't text or call or do anything. And I think that's been super important for our children to know how to communicate with people in person. And they do a great job. I mean, we practice with them. So, you know, how would you check on somebody who's not feeling well? How would you check on somebody who's, you know, having a hard time? And they're great about being compassionate. I think that we might have failed at a lot of things, but I think that, you know, them caring for other people is something that we are proud that they have learned. They have learned to not, and that again goes back to not being so self-centered, you know, because right now there's a lot of influences from the world, like you know, it's about you, it's what you feel matters, and we are always challenging them and saying, no, like your feelings are important, but to a certain degree. You know, you need to make sure that you're analyzing this through the Jesus lens, you know, through what would Jesus think about this situation, or what would Jesus think about the way you're feeling about this specific thing. And it's hard. It challenges them, but I think it gets them out of that selfishness that I think is inherent in a lot of children.
Yeah, it is hard. I think that's why not everybody does it, right? Everybody knows it's good to limit your kids' screen time, but not everybody does it, because it's hard to do that. It's easier because if they're unlimited on their screens, you can be too. Yes. I think as parents, and it's just easier to not be the bad guy. And thank God I've got a wife who has no problem being the bad guy whatsoever. And
thank you.
And no is her favorite word. And I'm just kidding. It's not right. She's very tender, but she chooses to make these hard decisions and draw these hard lines, because she knows it's not about what we feel; it's about what's right. And Dave, the other day when y'all were on the Maybe God podcast, y'all talked about the influence that feelings are having over us right now. It's just such a feelings-driven culture, and where that's leading us, and the Bible says the heart is deceptive above all things, and that's sort of where our feelings sort of come from, right? And we have to be very careful with our feelings, and I think the key is for Christian parents, raising kids that are suspicious of feelings, and that just want to do what is right in the eyes of God as far as we can. And so I think that's sort of the guiding light we've had as parents of two teens.
Right. And, and discipline, of course. Discipline is hard. But I don't mean just discipline in letting your child know when something goes wrong. I think we model discipline for them. If they see us adopt habits and really embrace them every single day, and prioritizing things, and these kind of habits that are important for us, for example, are reading. We want to make sure that there are people who know how to read, and ever
not
since,
just like literally, but
actually read. Yeah. And we have made it a habit for us to go to some kind of a bookstore almost every other day. Yeah. And we will spend a couple of hours easily just reading books. And our daughter and our son have become really great readers. And I think that has been so nice for us to see, because a lot of the times when they have a question about a certain topic, they will read and they will let us know. Actually, I think they're much better readers than we are. They're voracious readers.
But it's because they've seen us.
Because they've seen us,
modeling the discipline.
And it's hard because a lot of the times I've been tempted whenever we go to Barnes & Noble or to a bookstore to get out my computer and to start working again. But it's also challenged me to go and grab a book about, something I really want to deepen my understanding of, and reading next to them and them seeing me do that. And it's just become really powerful to see how it has developed. That discipline has developed throughout the years. Yeah. We might not be as good with other disciplines, but even to what they eat and making sure they eat certain food groups, even those things every single day has been important to us. But, we don't get it right every time. I don't want to say that we get it right every time, but there are certain things that we have been pretty disciplined about, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
You could,
I love that.
You guys, if you write a parenting book, I will be first in line to read it, because so much of what you're describing is so things that we've wanted to, to do with, raising. I mean, just all of it. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. And I love how you said we don't get it right all the time, because, gosh, we don't either. I mean, I don't think any of us do. I think knowing that none of us are perfect, that we're all works in progress. And sometimes, too, we'll try one, method of getting our kids' attention, maybe to read more, and that doesn't work. That doesn't mean we stop trying to get them to read more, whatever it is, but we try different things. And I think we're all on that journey. But I think that just the fact that the listeners and the people watching on YouTube are here, it shows that you all are great parents in the sense of wanting to learn. Because I think that knowing that we never arrive, that this is a journey, and just when we think we have it all figured out, we have a new season with one of our kids or all of our kids. And I feel like God keeps us on our toes in that way as parents. And but knowing that there's, we can always learn something, and books are a great way. I love that. And that challenges me. Like, our kids do read, but I'd like to even push that further. For them to want to go, when they need to learn something. I think all kids are so prone to just let's Google it, which sometimes gives good info, sometimes doesn't.
Or find a 30-second TikTok
or
video.
Or a TikTok video or YouTube. And I'm always like, you can't always believe everything you see on in those places. But doing, research in books, and plus reading is just so peaceful. I find it such a peaceful experience and a challenging in the best way kind of experience. Yeah. I want to say real quick before we kind of go to our end things that are fun with each episode. I said that we would talk about raising teenage boys. I would love to get your all's perspective on some of the hurdles that you have to face with raising teenage boys. What have you guys been seeing?
Well, you started with the girl, so I'll start with the boy. I think that, first of all, they're just so antisocial, and I think during COVID especially it got worse. And I think we're still recovering from that. And just teaching just basic manners and empathy and conversation, all those sorts of basics is some of the hardest challenges we face with our boy. But I would say again, if he is not just a grown up child, but a young man in training, as I said earlier, then we need to start teaching how to be a young man and training him in that regard. And that means, well, you work for money. And so there's nothing free. There's no handouts anymore, buddy. Like if you want to have money to spend, these are the sorts of things you're going to have to do. And a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't have to pay your kids for chores in my day, whatever. Okay, well, I think to each their own. To us, it has made a lot of sense to start giving him a little money for the work that he does around the house, if he does it well. And then, the other side of what I would say, some people are going to scoff at this, being a man is you have to sit with the consequences of your bad choices. And so not rescuing him, just because we feel bad for him, but letting him actually go without his phone for 2 weeks if he abuses the privilege. And, those sorts of things where, again, you're playing a long game. And one thing Geo, my wife, has taught me about raising kids is that you're parenting toward a big vision of a long time from now, what these kids of ours are going to be when they're our age. And, and so it's not just about what feels right in the moment. It's about what is right in the long term. And so in raising our 13-year-old boy, we're trying to treat him as much as possible like a man and teaching him some of the basic ethics, like work and reading.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I'm married to such a great dad, because I think parenting a boy is very hard without a dad. And I feel it for moms that are doing that, and I pray for them all the time. But I think that there are certain things that I think Eric communicates with Cohen about that I would never be able to. It would make me enter into a panic, because boys grow up into their teenage years, they change so much, and I think it's important for them to have a father, around.
We talk about everything.
We talk about, he and Cohen communicate about things that I don't think he and I communicate about. I'm more of his cuddle buddy, and I'm waiting there to hang out with him. And
it happened again 2 nights ago when you walked in the room and he and I were having one of our talks. And you go, what are y'all talking about? And I said, you don't want to know. And
I was like, oh, well, okay, well, I'll be downstairs.
Like Homer Simpson in the hedges.
Just back in straight in. But
it's just an everyday thing. It's an everyday journey with young boys, and I think that it is important for them also to know that there's somebody who, when they break the boundaries, that they will have to face consequences, because I think that in a lot of ways, after raising Joel and Cohen, I noticed that boys tend to want to break more boundaries, and they need a stronger hand around that will say, no, this is very wrong, and this is your consequence. To a certain degree, I can discipline both of them, but I know that Cohen will need that. In his life. So
no, that's
so good.
By God's perfect design, a strong mother and a strong father is ideal for every family. And those folks, like you said, that are having to do it solo, I just pray that God gives them the extra grace.
Right.
For that
I think that's where the church comes in too.
Yeah, that's
see that
exactly.
with mentors available at churches, that single moms in those cases can call on some of these elders in the community to help father their kids through tough seasons like adolescence.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so good. Yeah, you don't have to do it alone. And if you are listening right now and you're in that boat, you're a single parent, I just thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for investing in your own parenting and leadership and growth by listening to this, and just know, hey, God's with you. And like Eric just said, look to your church and the mentors who are there to come alongside you and help out. Guys, we've had so much gold in this podcast, and we could talk to you guys for hours, because there's so much wisdom. But to honor your time and the time of our listeners, we're going to move into the end with our weekly elements of Ashley's Fascinating Fact and Dave's Dad Joke. And then I want to, while we're doing this, Eric and Gio, I want you guys to think about, you've already shared so many nuggets of parenting wisdom that I feel selfish even asking for one more, but you've shared so much gold. I want to give you the final word, and after we finish this little part, I want to give each of you the chance to just share one piece of marriage encouragement or advice. It could be anything, big or small. Did I say what I say?
Marriage.
You said marriage.
Marriage.
Parenting.
This is a new podcast. Yep.
You could do
wrong podcast
and parenting.
Yeah. If it's a marriage tip, that helps families too. So, but we'll do parenting.
Yes.
And so while you're thinking of that, my love, what is your?
You go ahead and do your dad joke, because I was in between kind of, okay, I think I have mine, but you can.
I don't know. I mean,
You don't know yours yet?
no, I mean, I have a hard time deciding between.
There's just so many running through your mind all the time.
It is, yeah. And they're all terrible.
They really are. Like, it's one of the
They really are. She was
terrible.
so quick.
I meant
They are.
No, that's not. I chimed in at the wrong time. I meant like they really are running through your mind all the time. Like, he's just a fountain of dad jokes, and I love it. I love how much you love it. That brings me joy, even if I don't get them sometimes. And I'm like, how is this funny? But the boys,
anyway.
you know, I live in a household full of men, so like, I don't get most of the jokes. Like most of the time, I'm like, how is this funny? Even our teenage boys, I'm like, how is this funny, Mom? You just don't get it, you know. And I'm like, I don't. I'm sorry.
And then they show it to me, and I'm like, oh, that's hilarious.
And I'm like, this must be just a secret little.
It's our maturity level is so much lower than yours.
I don't know.
Oh, absolutely, that's what it is.
I'm just like, I don't get this joke. All right. So, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
All right. So, I am getting today's from this fascinating fact from the cbc.ca website, so a Canadian website. And I just found this very fascinating. It's entitled, Babies Swaddled Like Mummies. People once believed that babies wouldn't be able to assume human form, that's in quotation marks, unless it was forcibly imposed upon them. To achieve that in medieval times, children were swaddled from head to toe like mummies. The idea was that this would make their limbs grow into human limbs and their trunks stay a human trunk. It could take up to 2 hours to swaddle them, which meant the children were rarely changed and, in quotation marks, stewed in their own filth pretty much all day.
Oh.
The swaddling, I know, it's like what? The swaddling was also intended to prevent young children from exploring and getting into things they shouldn't, allowing parents to continue their business.
That's what it was
knowing that
really
their
about.
child.
Yeah,
I think it was.
really about, yeah.
It was a free babysitter. They
Tie him up.
They were like, oh, but he's immobilized.
They got to grow human limbs. Let's
And-
just.
Yeah, right, sure.
But this is the tragic part of the story. So back in medieval times, a lot of children died when they were bundled into a cradle and then nosed into a fire by the livestock that passed in and out of the house. And so until about the late medieval period, children had a 50% chance of living to their 10th birthday. And so people learned that was not good. So like sometimes my fascinating facts are going to be a little hard because I think as parents, we need to sometimes know how far some of these parenting, the parenting advice went in different times throughout history. So
Well, and I think it's a good reminder too that just because we've done it this way or everybody in our family's done it a certain way in parenting, it's okay to take a step back and really evaluate that. But like just because it's been done or because it's a popular trendy thing to do, does that mean it's the healthy thing to do?
That's
exactly.
right.
Because all these folks in the Middle Ages,
For like a while.
they convince themselves, no, every loving parent, ties their kid up from
For
head to toe.
decades they did this.
I mean,
And lets the donkey kick it into the fire or whatever. It's terrible. Yeah.
It's so terrible. I know. So you got to lighten it up with your joke. You
let's
gotta
keep
lighten this
learning.
up.
Let's keep growing. Gosh, that's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure.
Sorry,
you
that
give me
was a little
a death fact, and then I'm
I'm
gonna.
sorry.
All right. Oh man.
Make it good, Dave.
Yeah, this has got to be a real good one.
Oh man. Okay.
No pressure.
So.
Alrighty.
I went to the doctor the other day, and he asked me to come back today with a stool sample.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So I've been watching YouTube videos on carpentry to learn how to build one.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Oh,
And the
I said, oh.
the doctor was really concerned when I told him I wouldn't be able to produce a stool sample for at least a month.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I did lighten it up. I'm not sure that was your best one, but it was okay.
Any joke about stool samples looks good with me.
Oh yeah.
Hey, it's better.
If it is a poop,
I love it.
if it's a poop themed dad joke, it's you already have a head start.
You do.
over.
Everybody's going to laugh at that. That's,
Well, no, they're gonna-
to some it
That's
is
good.
poop, so yeah.
Ashley, you're a lucky woman.
I
Yeah,
am.
she is.
I
yeah.
really am. No, Dave is like amazing, and I love his love for dad jokes. So I'm excited. I love every time we record. I'm excited to see what you come up with. So,
I don't know if that excitement is from your heart, but
it
I
is
will.
from my heart.
I will
it's
receive
from my
it,
heart.
and I will thank you for it. All right, guys. Before we wrap up, Eric and Geo, give us one more of your deep treasure trove of parenting nuggets.
Yes.
Give us one more before we close out.
Me or you? I'll go.
you go.
Okay. I think what we hear a lot from people, because we're pastors, people will come to us and say, how am I supposed to raise my kids to be Christians in a culture like this one. You know, they're in public school, or even worse, in some instances, they're in these private schools where they've gone off the rails in terms of ideology or whatever, politics, etc. And the simplest and best answer, and the answer no one wants to hear, is just be a Christian. Like, be Christian parents and
all the way.
Yeah, dive into your faith and let
really
them
live
see.
It out.
Yeah, and I know that sounds sort of pedantic or minimalistic, but it's true. And kids they have the best sort of hate to use the phrase, but like BS antenna. Like they are always looking for, and they pick up on hypocrisy like no one else. And so if you're telling them, you know, you really want them to be Christian kids, but, you know, you're drinking all the time, or, you know, you're not reading your Bible at home, or you're not taking your faith seriously, like, it's a really simple answer. Like, if you really genuinely want more than anything else to raise your kids to love the Lord and be Christians, like, let them see you diving into your faith wholeheartedly, and you will see the blessings of that over the long haul.
Man,
Beautiful.
I love it.
It's awesome.
Thank you, guys.
You guys are amazing. Thank you all.
Geo, what do you got?
Yes. Sorry.
I thought you wanted one for both of us.
Well,
Let's hear it.
I would say trust in the Lord. Trust Him in all of your ways. I think that's a passage, right? A Bible passage. And I think every single day when you face challenges, bring it to the Lord and let the Lord give you the wisdom that you need, you know, and also have a great community around you, of other Christian parents that you can call. And when you reach a hurdle and you don't know what to do, those people who have more wisdom, who've already graduated their children into college or whatever it is, that phase of life that you're going through, they can help you. They can give you the right advice. So have a good village, a good community.
Amen.
That is so wise. You know, just speaking to that, like we literally just this weekend before this recording, dropped our son off into his dorm for college, and he's our first one. And I have been so grateful. And I think you've had men too. You've had men reach out to you and see how you're doing, giving advice, just checking up on us. And I've had my, ladies ahead of me, or maybe doing this alongside me, check on me and like, how's your mama heart? How are y'all doing? How's Cooper doing? And I'm telling you, that village is just so important. You know, we talked about our kids having godly friendships, but us too, as parents, we're modeling that for them as well. And to also be that village for someone else, to be that supportive village. So I love that reminder. Gosh, man, we're going to have you guys on again sometime in the future.
Please,
you're so
we'd love
wise
to.
and have
Thank you.
such great, just practical tips on really living out being a godly parent and being real with our kids. So I just appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Before we go, tell folks where they can find you. Of course, if you're in the Houston area, definitely go to Story Church.
Story Church.
Check it out. But where, for those in other parts of the world that want to connect with what you're doing, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, well, we have the Story Church online, which is at thestory.church, and you can watch services and things like that. But we also have this sort of in-house podcast that you guys were on last week called the Maybe God Podcast. And we put out weekly content really tackling some of the most difficult topics and questions that people are wrestling with, but especially folks that are sort of on the fringe of faith and just not real sure about Christianity. That's really our target audience. And so if you or someone you really care about is like really struggling with Christianity or faith or religion, then we curate this podcast for you. And you can find it at maybegodpod.com or anywhere that you listen to podcasts.
Great.
And it is a great resource.
It's so good.
We highly recommend it. Guys, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. Keep up the great work, and we hope to reconnect with you real soon. And for all you listeners, thank you guys so much for listening to this. Do us a favor and share this episode. There are parents of teens out there who could really use the wisdom and encouragement that was talked about today. So share it on social, or just send a text message to a friend and say, hey, check this out. You might just make their day. So God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.
Amen.
Thank
Thanks,
you for
guys.
having us.